report. We just had a really big earthquake in the Solomon Islands, massive 7.8. Tsunami waves forecast, and I'm going to provide you with a Pacific tsunami warning bulletin on this earthquake. And here is the map right here with the epicenter indicated by the star. You can see how big it was. Okay. A powerful earthquake registered by the USGS as magnitude 7.8 hit near the coast of Solomon Islands at 1738 Universal Time on December 8, 2016. The agency is reporting a depth of 41 kilometers, 25.4 miles. Geoscience Australia is reporting magnitude 8.1 and a depth of 35 kilometers, 21.7 miles, and USGS initially reported it as a magnitude 8.0. The epicenter was located 68.2 kilometers, 42.4 miles west-southwest of Kira Kira, and it has a population of 1,122 people and 203.9 kilometers, 126.7 miles southeast of Honiara in the Solomon Islands. And Honiara has a larger population, folks. It has 56,000 people in the Solomon Islands. There are about 33,822 people living within 100 kilometers, and that's about 62 miles away from the epicenter, apparently. Based on the preliminary earthquake parameters, widespread hazardous tsunami waves are possible, and that's per the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center, which I'm going to show you the latest bulletin on that. Hazardous tsunami waves are possible within the next 3 hours along some coasts of Solomon Islands, Vanuatu, Papua New Guinea, Nauru, New Caledonia, Tuvalu, and Kosrae. And here's the USGS shake map of the Solomon Islands dated December 8, 2016. And that was as of 1738:47 Universal Time. It had a depth of 48.7 kilometers. So it doesn't look like it was very shallow. Alright. Updated Pacific Tsunami Warning Threat message as of 1854 Universal Time. And here is the bulletin. It's an evaluation. An earthquake with a preliminary magnitude of 7.8 occurred in the Solomon Islands at 1739 Universal Time on Thursday, December 8, 2016. And based on all available data, hazardous tsunami waves are forecast for some coasts. And here's a updated tsunami forecast. Tsunami waves reaching 1 to 3 meters above the tide level are possible along some of the coasts of the Solomon Islands. Tsunami waves reaching 0.3 to 1 meters above the tide level are possible for some coasts of Papua New Guinea. Tsunami waves are forecast to be less than 0.3 meters above the tide level for the coasts of French Polynesia. For other areas, tsunami waves are forecast to be much less than 0.3 meters above the tide level. Actual amplitudes at the coast may vary from forecast amplitudes due to uncertainties in the forecast and local features. In particular, maximum tsunami amplitudes on atolls and at locations with fringing or barrier reefs will likely be much smaller than the forecast indicates. For other areas covered by this product, a forecast has not yet been computed. The forecast will be expanded if necessary in subsequent products. And here are your recommended actions. Government agencies responsible for threatened coastal areas should take action to inform and instruct any coastal populations at risk in accordance with their own evaluation, procedures, and the level of threat. Persons located in threatened coastal areas should stay alert for information and follow instructions from national and local authorities. And here's your estimated times of arrival. Estimated times of arrival, ETA, of the initial tsunami wave for places within threatened regions are given below. Actual arrival times may differ, and the initial wave may not be the largest, so keep that in mind. A tsunami is a series of waves, and the time between waves can be 5 minutes to 1 hour. Okay, here are your estimated arrival times for the tsunami waves in these regions: Kira Kira, Auki, Honiara, Munda, Gateri, Pango, and Woodlark Island, as indicated on this chart here. Your potential impacts are the following. A tsunami is a series of waves. The time between wave crests can vary from 5 minutes to an hour. The hazard may persist for many hours or longer after the initial wave. Impacts can vary significantly from one section of coast to the next due to local bathymetry and the shape and elevation of the shoreline. Impacts can also vary depending upon the state of the tide at the time of the maximum tsunami waves. Persons caught in the water of a tsunami may drown, be crushed by debris in the water, or be swept out to sea. So heed that warning. The maximum estimated tsunami wave height is 1.5 meters or 4.9 feet at 1827 Universal Time in Oneola, Solomon Islands, according to the JRC. Okay, so here's a infrared map of the area, and I'm pretty sure it's indicating the waves, how the waves are going to impact those areas. A tsunami watch was briefly in effect for Hawaii. Professor Max Weiss, who specializes in theoretical prognosis of injuries and fatalities, expects 0 to 50 fatalities and 30 to 270 injured, and that's per the earthquake report. This is quite a lot for the Solomon Islands, by the way. USGS issued a green alert for shaking-related fatalities and economic losses. There is a low likelihood of casualties and damage. Overall, the population in this region resides in structures that are vulnerable to earthquake shaking, though some resistant structures exist. The predominant vulnerable building types are mud wall and informal metal, timber, GI, etc. construction. Recent earthquakes in this area have caused secondary hazards such as tsunamis that might have contributed to losses. Here's your estimated population exposure to earthquake shaking. And this is a map. All right. And here you can see the earthquake vulnerability, which the dark red at the bottom is extreme, all the way up to weak. All right. Seismotectonics of the eastern margin of the Australia plate. And I'm going to just read a few sentences from this. The eastern margin of the Australia plate is one of the most seismically active areas of the world due to high rates of convergence between the Australia and Pacific plates. In the region of New Zealand, the 3,000 kilometer long Australia Pacific plate boundary extends from south of Macquarie Island to the southern Kermadec Island chain. It includes an oceanic transform, which is the Macquarie Ridge, two oppositely verging subduction zones, and those are the zones listed there, and a transpressive continental transform, the Alpine Fault through South Island, New Zealand. Okay, and if you'd like to read more, you can read more on that. All right, and it's all in this report for you. Lots of info on the region here. Okay, now we also had an earthquake, another earthquake off Northern California, and I'm going to cover that in a minute. We're going to scroll up to the top here. All right. So they're expecting damage, and I hope no fatalities, but well, this is a large earthquake, folks, so, you know, that might happen. I don't know for sure, but hopefully not. Okay, let's go to the next report. Just a moment. Okay, folks, so here is the magnitude 6.5 earthquake that struck off of the Northern California coast, and that's a pop-up. I apologize for that. That just popped up out of nowhere. All right. And as you know, they tend to do that sometimes without warning. Just like earthquakes strike without warning. Sometimes we have a warning signal that something's about to happen, and sometimes we don't. That's just the nature of earthquakes, folks. Okay, so this was a magnitude 6.5 earthquake striking 100 miles off of the Northern California coast. This was posted at 7:15 a.m. December 8, 2016 by CNN, Wire, and Tracy Bloom. It was last updated at 11:36 a.m. December 8, 2016. A 6.5 magnitude earthquake shook the Pacific Ocean floor about 100 miles off the Northern California coast on Thursday morning, causing some light shaking along coastal communities in the state, according to the U.S. Geological Survey. The quake centered around 102 miles west of Ferndale, California, and 279 west-northwest of Sacramento, struck around 6:50 a.m. Pacific time at a depth of about 7.5 miles. USGS initially said the magnitude was 6.8, but later revised it. And folks, I've been through a magnitude 6.5 earthquake off the California coast there a couple years ago, and that earthquake was a real shaker. I can't even describe how intense that shaking was. It rattled my head. It really did. So 6.5 magnitude is nothing to take lightly. It can be very damaging. All right, so we continue. USGS initially thought it was a 6.8, but they are always revising their magnitudes, by the way. Light shaking was reported from east central Oregon to areas a few dozen miles south of San Francisco, USGS reported, and the quake was followed by a magnitude 4.7 trembler that hit just about after 8:30 a.m. according to the USGS. No tsunami threat is expected from the initial earthquake, according to the Pacific Tsunami Warning Center. There have been no immediate reports of injuries or major damage. The seismic activity led to inconveniences for some commuters in the San Francisco Bay Area as BART trains temporarily moved at a reduced speed in the aftermath of the trembler, which led to delays of about 10 minutes or so. The move was described as a precautionary measure, CNN affiliate KGO in San Francisco is reporting. And according to seismologist Lucy Jones, the earthquake struck at the Pacific Gorda Plate boundary at the north end of the San Andreas Fault. The earthquake means nothing for Southern California, Jones tweeted in response to a question about any possible ramifications for the southern part of the state. Means nothing? Gee, I wonder about that statement, folks. Earthquakes mean something. How can somebody say it means nothing? Anyway, California's north coast, among the most seismically active areas in the region, had experienced smaller tremblers in the days preceding the magnitude 6.5 one the Los Angeles Times was reporting. The offshore area off of Northern California has experienced some larger quakes in the past 2 years, including a magnitude 6.9 trembler in March of 2014 and 2 earthquakes with magnitudes above 5.0 that struck weeks apart in January 2015. All right? Okay, so that is the 6.5 in Ferndale, California, is where it occurred. If you look at USGS, and I cannot get a good map of that on USGS. I didn't think it was worth looking at, but this one here, you see that little map there? I'm going to click on it and see if it enlarges for you. Hopefully it will. I don't know. Just take a second here, folks, but It's right there. Okay, I got it to enlarge for you. So here it is, the Gorda Escarpment. All right, you can see the plate is lined in red right there, and it happened just right there on the tectonic plate line. And it's right off of Ferndale, California, off the coast. I believe they said about 100 miles off the coastline. And they were having temblors prior to this larger earthquake. So that would give an indication of something larger happening because the pressure was probably building. Therefore, you get the smaller temblors, which leads up to the big pop. Okay, whatever is going to pop with the larger magnitude earthquake. And this is a very seismically active area off the coastline here on Northern California. And also off of Oregon is another active area, and as is Alaska and British Columbia. All of those areas. Normally if you see a big one popping in Japan, it's just going to follow the outline of the Ring of Fire. Basically, it just moves all the plates, and therefore you have all this activity going on. And also just beware of the fact that when we have things like comets and solar flares and the sun and the moon tides, everything affects what's happening with these plates. And you can look further into that. There are some great channels on YouTube, BP Earthwatch, Dutch Sense. Those guys really put out some real detailed information, and they talk a lot longer on these things, and they can give you a good heads up on what may or may not occur, okay, along the coastlines. But so in summary, we had that big earthquake, okay. That was a very large earthquake. It's nothing to sneeze at, the one in the Solomon Islands. The Indonesian region and the Solomon Islands, you got the Puerto Rico Trench, you got all these areas that are very seismically active, and also Chile. Chile puts out a lot of big earthquakes sometimes. That's another region to watch also. Okay, that's going to do it for this report. So anyway, look out for that tsunami wave of 1 to 3 meters is what they were saying. And look out for your own safety if you're in that area. I don't know if you're visiting or living there, but please beware of that and listen to your local broadcasts and follow the information. Whatever they tell you to do, please do it, and